examination and testimony and a little flex line. Go to the one I understand the most first. You have an accountant located in Hayward County.
Yes.
And I think I've spoken to that lady. In fact, I think I've subpoenaed that lady. And her name is?
Norma.
Last name?
I do not know.
Mr. W.J. Wickerama said Schulhoff. Schulhofer.
Schulhofer.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I spoke to her in connection with letting her know I was going to subpoena her to be here today. And was aware at the time that I was inconveniencing her because she reported to me that her husband had a stroke. And it was very difficult for her to be here. But if I made her come, she'd come. I think she's here, and to her, I apologize for having to make her come, feeling I had to make her come. Is that how this conversation, did she mention something about being subpoenaed to here in Madison County?
Yeah, that's all she done. She just told me she is subpoenaed to be in Madison County.
And did she tell you she loved Larry Leake for it, or did she express frustration?
Well, I could tell she didn't like the idea of having to drive over here. And her husband's sick.
And we all understand that.
And we understand that, and it's a busy time for taxes, I suspect.
Now, the second thing I understand a whole lot less than that, and that's this entity called Facebook. And where is that?
Mr. Leake, if I may, did you say Ms. Schulhofer is here?
Mr. Hopper?
You are here. Okay.
And thank you for being here, ma'am, and I again apologize for making you hope to figure out a way to expedite you. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Now, Sir, do you have anything to do with Carhart, whatever that is, C-A-R-H-A-R-T-T? Are you a spokesman for Carhart?
No,
Are you a spokesman for Sandy Mile and 12 Mile?
I am not.
Are you a spokesman for Barrel Novelty?
Don't know what it is.
Are you a spokesman for Madison Has Heart?
I am not.
Are you a spokesman for High Tech Radio?
I am not.
Are you a spokesman for the Rose Familia? Got any idea what that is?
Don't know what it is.
Are you a spokesperson for Progress NC Action?
No.
Did you place on this page the statement, if you grew up in Madison County, then you remember 2,372 members, just a group for all of us who grew?
I did not.
Do you know Jerry and Christine Tackett?
No, sir.
Did you know that Jerry and Christine Tackett are now friends? It's on your Facebook page.
I don't know.
Did you know that SportPeople.com is the world's largest free online weight loss and healthy living community?
I do not.
It even appears under what appears to be statements made by you. Did you put that there?
No, sir.
And I believe that this particular page that has stuff on it, those stuffs which have dates appear to be the dates of, you must not be on Facebook a whole lot, are you?
No, sir, I've never posted nothing on Facebook.
Because the comments appear to be from the time period of March 25 to July 9, 2012. That'd be about 9 months, and I don't know how to break this to you, Mr. Wall, but if all your friends are on Facebook talking to you, you ain't got no friends.
I don't do Facebook, really.
There's 4 statements to you in that 9-month period. So you didn't put anything about John Ledford next to your Facebook page.
No, sir.
Are you through, Mr. Leake?
Not yet, sir,
Okay, sir.
but I'm getting close.
We certainly may have a redirect, and I have questions of my own, but you get to go first.
Sir, is it your testimony that you don't have a Facebook, or you don't?
No, I've got a Facebook. Yeah.
Are you aware that in September of 2013, the Fourth Circuit, the United States Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia, in a case involving sheriffs, stated that liking something on Facebook is a form of speech protected by the First Amendment? A federal court ruled Wednesday reviving a closely watched case over the extent to which constitutional shields apply to what we do online. The court stated,
Mr. Chairman, I object. If this is a question.
it is a question, if I may.
Mr. Leake, let's let the attorney finish, and then we'll debate.
Liking the campaign page was the internet equivalent of displaying a political sign in one's front yard. Now, that's what the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals stated, and I believe when this gets to the North Carolina Board of Elections, they can take notice of any case law, both in the state and federal court systems, in reviewing conduct of board members. Now, while Mr. Leake got a few chuckles out of this, I have a very serious question. You stated that you do have a Facebook.
I do.
Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Is John Ledford's like Facebook comment on your Facebook page pursuant to Petitioner's Exhibit 1, which I presented to you? It's a yes or no question, sir.
One more time. That's that question. One more time.
You do Facebook, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We got a little chuckle, a little humor earlier. My question is, on Petitioner's Exhibit number 1, on your Facebook page, is there a like sign for John Ledford?
That's what it looks like. You asked me if I posted anything on Facebook,
I'm
right?
asking you if it's on your Facebook page.
Yes, it looks like it's on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So according to the law of the land that
I
applies,
get to object now.
You certainly may.
You know, Mr. Waller may be many things. Number one, he is not an expert in the law, and I happen to differ with counsel's assertions as to the law.
do you have
And
law
this is
representing?
neither the
Speaking
time-
over me is now, it is the time, sir.
Gentlemen, we will not.
It was me who was objecting at that time.
I'm well aware, sir.
Mr. Leake, Mr. Weejay, Wickrama, both of you sit down. I am telling you, I don't like being here, and I don't like doing what we just did. Mr. Laws assured me that there will be no yelling and screaming in this courtroom because everyone's professional. I have seen all I want to hear. I am wearing the chairman's hat at this time. Both of you will be civil. We will give everybody an opportunity to address this board.
Is it my time?
I don't know. I have questions about this myself. I'm going to go back to Mr. Vijay Wickrama. You quoted a court case from what court?
The Fourth Circuit, United States Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia, which covers the state of North Carolina.
Thank you.
In September of last year.
Mr. Laws, can you approach this board for just a moment? The rest of you are going to have to wonder what we're talking about up here. Does this have validity?
Not before you all. Not before you all. I mean, he doesn't need to be arguing the law for you. We're just simply fact finders.
He's asking him a question. Does he have a Facebook page? He's asking if that picture of John is on there. That's really all we need.
That's right, and I'm going to ask him if he has any more questions for this witness at this time. Okay. There will be no arguments made to you all regarding what the law is. This is simply question asking time.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Hang on just a second. We knew we would get to some place where we were going to have to put a thinking caps on, and Mr. Laws has told us here, the three board members, that what you need to do is ask questions. Yes and no questions are good. Quoting the law is beyond our scope. It's probably there. You, Mr. Leake, Mr. Laws, know those ins and outs. We don't. You have established yes or no questions with this gentleman, and we're going to give Mr. Leake a chance to object. Then we'll do one more redirect, and then we'll move from there to questions from the members of the board. Okay? Mr. Leake.
You have very appropriately handled my objection.
Thank you.
I might have one more question, just so I can be clear on the
Yes, sir.
actual issue, if I might.
You may.
Mr. Wallen, factually, I know nothing about Facebook. Okay? Did you take any act, to your knowledge, that caused that image to appear on that Facebook page?
No, sir. Not anything.
Okay. Mr. Vijay Wickrama.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Case cited is Carter versus Roberts out of the Fourth Circuit. I owe Mr. Leake an apology, and I owe the court an apology for losing temper.
What was the last part of that citation, sir?
It's Carter versus Roberts. I can get you an official citation. It's the Fourth Circuit from 2013.
Have a good look.
I do have a question for the court on procedure, if I may. Mr. Laws, if we're questioning the witness, we're questioning this member, and there's a witness I have to put towards the testimony of this member, do I wait until the case in chief to do it under the board of election procedure, or prior to asking him the final questions of refusal to the board, may I call that witness now?
I'm sorry, can you please speak up?
Believe he's entitled, and the parties are entitled to present whatever evidence they wish to present on the motion to accuse.
At this time, sir, I would like to promise you.
If you don't mind, I have a,
That's what I just.
we're not through here with this Facebook thing.
Hang on. Are you finished with this witness?
What I'm asking, Mr. Laws, is I am finished with this witness, but I'm not finished with my evidence for the recusal.
I understand.
Right.
So if you're finished with this witness, I think we need to leave. Are you finished with this witness?
Is he going to be called a witness or be examined a witness?
I think if he does recall the witness, you'll be entitled to question the witness at that time. I think if the board has any questions of this witness, now we can
Thank you. This is not as easy as it looks up here. I have a question that I need to ask, and I do not know who to ask it of. So I will ask it of all the attorneys present, since y'all are experts at this, and I'll start with you since you're representing this board. This paper that has been presented as evidence is a copy of a Facebook page. Mr. Leake and I date ourselves when we say we're not really experts on Facebook. But that is accurate. Is that correct? This actually came off of the internet. It belongs to Mr. Wallen. He had to establish this account. It is his and his alone.
Correct.
Is this available to any member of the public? And that's germane to me. Can anyone in this courtroom that wants to see that page go home, get on the internet, find Facebook, and find that page with Mr. Lefford's picture there saying vote for John Lefford?
Yes, sir.
You say it can happen.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney, help me here.
I do not know the answer to that question.
Mr. Leake, do you have any idea?
I'm only going to tell you my impression and say that London Council is not qualified, or it's not a witness.
That's
Qualified, no. To state factual stuff. My understanding of Facebook is that you have to send a request to a person saying, I want to be your friend. The person has to say yes, and that then you get access. But that's my understanding, which I admit to be.
I wish we had a 13-year-old girl here because they probably could answer that question.
I would agree with Mr. Leake, sir. I would agree with everything he's just said.
So I now will hold myself out as qualified.
I thank you all for your opinions. I don't have one at this point in time. We'll proceed. Mr. Vijay Wickrama, you wait just a moment. I'm out of step here. Other board members, do you have something you'd like to comment or ask Mr. Wallen about?
I will not insert myself on the security measures with Facebook. You can block about anything if you want to.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe, sharing the same level of experience with Mr. Leake, there are public and private parts of Facebook. And public parts, for example, my law firm, anyone can go on. I don't have to like or dislike them. They can go on and see my public part. I may have pictures of my family that are private, where you would have to make the request to get into the private section to see my family and our family activities. So there are two different levels of Facebook.
I appreciate that, Counselor. And we will move on. You were about to call another witness. You may do so.
And sir, if I may, before we move forward, and I don't know if this, I believe some other members who filed a notice with us here, you have it here in the courtroom. We need to mark that for the record that they're here. Again, I believe I've identified these two gentlemen. Gentlemen, what we did before, we identified the notice of hearing for the parties that were requested to be here, had an opportunity to be here. I believe that Mr. Ortman and Mr. Malone have arrived. Is that correct, sir? Okay, just note for the record that those two gentlemen are here, please.
Mr. Vijay Wickrama.
This time, Mr. Heisler, co-counsel, will be questioning the issue.
The members of the board, my name is Ben Seidel of the Hamilton County Bar, and I would ask again if Ms. Schulhofer is in attendance today. Ms. Schulhofer, I'd like to call Ms. Schulhofer to give her testimony this time, please.
Ms. Schulhofer, if you'll make your way down front here, I'm going to ask the law firm that's representing this board to make some arrangements for her to sit down and be able to address this board. I guess right up here is a good place.
And Mr. Chair, I will note for the general public, if you were called, this is where the witness stand is, please be careful. There are some cords right here. We have them taped down as best as possible. I know there's some older folks in attendance today. I just want to make sure that we're very careful.
Okay, she needs to be sworn.
Would you place your left hand on the Bible, please, and raise your right? Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to this panel in this challenge now and hearing, wherein Cindy Harmon, Peter Ortman, and Timothy Malone are the challengers, and C. John Ledford is the challenged candidate, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I
And we are going to maintain our dignity and decorum here.
Yes, sir.
You may go.
Ms. Schulhofer, my name is Ben Side. I'm the first asked to make sure that I can be heard well, and everyone hear the sound of my voice. All right. Ms. Schulhofer, would you please state your name for the record, please?
My name is Norma Schulhofer. That's SCHULHOFER.
What is your occupation, ma'am?
I'm an accountant. I own my own business. I have a enormous tax service that's bookkeeping and income tax.
How long have you been doing that?
This is my 55th year.
55th?
I started when I was 2.
And is Mr. Wallen a client of yours?
Yes, he is.
Is Mr. Ledford a client of yours?
Yes, he is.
Are they current clients?
Yes, they are.
Did you, have a conversation with Mr. Wallen about today's hearing?
Yes, I did.
What was the contents of that conversation, ma'am?
Well, Mr. Wallen came to pick up his income tax, and I had just been served the subpoena. And I wasn't very happy, I'll just be honest. My husband's had a major stroke, and I needed to be at home with him. But I came on over here because that's my civic duty. And I had mentioned it to Mr. Wallen that I had received that subpoena, and I had no idea how to get to this courthouse. And I said, besides, I do not have a physical address for Mr. and Ms. Ledford. We've always used, and I've done their taxes since 2006. So I have always had just a post office box number. But I had mentioned to Mr. Wallen, I have no idea how to get here. So he was trying to tell me how. And I said to Mr. Wallen, I don't have a physical address. And he said, well, all you have to do is just tell the post office box, Mars Hill, North Carolina. That's all you've got. And that's what he said to me. That I should tell y'all that the only thing I have is a post office box number.
That is what Mr. Wallen instructed you.
Yeah. And that is all I have, is a post office box number.
For Mr. Ledford's taxes.
Yes, sir.
Did you speak with Mr. Larry Leake about today's hearing?
Excuse me?
Did you speak to Mr. Larry Leake about today's hearing? The council's mind.
Yes, when he called and asked me if I could come, and I told him at that time I could not come because my husband had had a stroke and he's critical. And I needed, but I made arrangements today for a Cnty to come and stay with him so that I could be here. And I told Mr. Ledford so. And I also told him, I said, you do know that I do other people in this county's income tax. So he said, well, I will subpoena you. So he did. And I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. Did you and Mr. Leake speak about Mr. Ledford's address at any time during that conversation?
Not that I recall.
Did you speak time about Mr. Ledford's physical address during this conversation?
With Mr. Leake?
Yes, ma'am.
Not that I recall.
I'm gonna wait for that.
We'll wait till the train goes through.
I'll keep going. Did you prepare for Mr. Ledford's taxes for this past tax year?
Not for 13, I haven't.
Did you prepare Mr. Ledford's taxes for 2012?
Yes, sir.
Recently, has Mr. Ledford or his wife Ramona come to your office to pick up any materials?
Mrs. Ledford came by on March the 7th. I was not in the office, but she left me a note that she needed a couple of copies of their income taxes or the front pages, which she didn't come back to pick them up, so I did not run them. But she was in my office like last fall. Let's see. And she and I had a conversation about, I always asked how John's doing and all about it, and she said, I asked her where he was now, and she said he was living in...
Excuse me? Let- Okay. We need,
The North Carolina Rules of Evidence Server last year, I spoke to Mr. Laws about the hearsay issue, and I also spoke to in-house counsel at the Board of Elections. And to my understanding, hearsay is not.
Mr. Laws, your opinion on this?
You all are not our lawyers. The statute that covers this hearing specifically says that 8C, which is their code of evidence, will apply. I did speak to Mr. Don Wright, who is State Board of Elections Counsel, and he did advise that these are relaxed rules of hearing. What I would ask you to do would be to allow as much evidence as you could into the record. You will need to give that evidence, what is said, weight regarding its credibility, noting that hearsay evidence in a strict hearing is not permitted even in its evidence, and certainly not given as a reason to support findings of fact. So I think you could allow what was said into the record, but when you are considering what is said regarding findings of fact, allow it the appropriate way that you should give that criteria.
Mr. Leake, is there something specific that's been said here that you object to?
Don't know what's going to be said, please, and I'm not
Okay.
going to have, at least not quickly, the ability to...
Respond? Okay.
And that's the whole reason for the hearsay.
I would ask one question. It was my understanding from talking to Mr. Laws that affidavits were permissible. And if affidavits are permissible, and we lack the ability to cross-examine the affidavit based on their testimony, seems to me like the same principle applies here.
Boy, this job of Ben Solomon is tougher than I thought it would be. And at this point in time, Mr. Leake, you have some rebuttal to what Mr. W.J. Wickrama has said?
Well, and let me prefix this, Mr. Sanders, by saying that when he and I bark at each other,
Yes, sir.
we're going to be sharing a cup of coffee 5 minutes later. So don't,
Okay.
that's the nature of that profession. I have two comments. First is, I do not believe that affidavits would be admitted into this kind of proceeding, number one. court, it's generally one lawyer against one lawyer at a time. Whoever takes a lawyer as a witness is the person who deals with all issues involving that witness. It has been the other counsel who's been dealing with this witness, and I think it ought to be him who addresses all this issue, and that way I might not be hopping up twice as much as
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leake. I tried to educate myself on the procedural issues here. I've had conversations with Donnie Laws. I've had conversations with Don Wright. I've had conversations with some expert people in this county who don't practice law, but they have opinions. But if you read the gray book there, what we're talking about here in this part of the hearing, it is relaxed. And the advice that I got from Mr. Laws was to let as much into the record as we possibly could. So we're going to move forward with that advice from the county attorney, and we'll certainly entertain objections. You've been great. Mr. Hyatt, you're back on.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hopper, you were continuing about the conversation that you had with Mrs. Flavor.
Yes, she was in my office back last fall, and I always ask about John. I always ask how everybody's doing, and I asked her where he was living, and I didn't know if he was back in Raleigh or what, and she said, no, he's in Barnardsville, and she had lost her father, and she was doing all this other. I have no idea what county Barnardsville's in, because I'm not associated with this. I live in Hayward County.
Yes, ma'am. Did you have a conversation at that time with Mrs. Ledford about Mr. Ledford's running for sheriff?
No, I did not.
Mr. Ledford's running for sheriff didn't come up any time during that conversation?
No, sir.
Where did Mrs. Ledford ask those papers to be mailed to?
I wasn't in the office. She just left a note and said that she needed the 2 front copies of 11 and 12 is all she needed. She didn't say to mail them or anything, and I just assumed she's going to come pick them up.
Is that what she did at a later time?
No, nobody picked them up.
So does your office still have those materials?
Yes, we do.
What was the address? What was the address listed for the Ledfords on those materials?
I've got to stop here just a second. We're getting into waters here that deal with the hearing about Mr. Ledford's residency, and really what and it may be more appropriate to hear that stuff later down the road. What we're talking about right now is Mr. Wallen's ability to hear the case fairly. And agree or disagree?
I agree with your statement in principle, but as courtesy to this witness, who I have drug over here, and who I was going, without your inquiry, as counsel, Mr. Laws, if we shouldn't just, we regularly kind of divide and separate things,
Okay.
take them out of order, and basically seek their permission just to deal with it. My questions out there, I thought were going to be very limited. I've gotten a little bigger, but I would think it would be a shame to make this late, given everything else she's got going, have to sit back there and wait till mid-afternoon.
Okay.
So if everybody else is good, I'm good with us asking whatever we want to ask.
Thank you. Mr. W.J. Wick, it's the first time I've ever had 3 lawyers on the floor at one time stand up.
Our purpose, if Mr. Leake would agree, would be to dismiss her so she can go back to Residency with her husband after we're done.
I think that's a great idea.
And hear her out of order for her convenience.
Mr. Hyatt, you're okay with this?
Yes, sir, I am. I
Remember, they're the same size.
Yes, sir.
So if you took one again.
Mr. Laws, are we okay to proceed with things outside the realm of Mr. Wallen's qualifications to hear this case?
Both parties and the council have consented to hear this witness out of order, and I think it's fine to proceed in that manner.
Okay, if you'll allow me, I have to change pads of paper. And Mr. Hyatt, you may proceed.
Mr. Walker, would you please, would you go on with what you were getting out of your bag?
I had to write down the addresses. The address is Post Office Box 358, Mars Hill, North Carolina. That was the address I had for Mr. and Ms. Ledford.
In your experience as an accountant, is it common for materials like those to be sent to a post office box?
A lot of people use post office boxes for their mail, especially income tax or whatever.
Is there any requirement in the preparation of those materials for you to know a physical address of any?
No, sir, there is not. There is not.
Did the contents of your conversation with Mrs. Ledford include anything else?
No, sir.
Mr. Schulhofer, I just have a couple more questions, and then we'll be done. Shifting back to your conversation with Mr. Wallen about Mr. Ledford's post office box, what was Mr. Wallen's demeanor whenever the two of you had that conversation?
Well, I just had commented to him that I did not have a physical address. And he said, well, all you have to say is what the post office box, Mars Hill, North Carolina. That's it.
Did he point or wag his finger at you?
And he said, Jerry's always wagging his finger. And he's good at that. And he said, all you need to say is that it's post office box, Mars Hill, North Carolina. He did not say the post office box number because he didn't know it. He said, that's all you have to say.
I asked that the record reflect that the witness was wagging her finger back and forth to indicate Mr. Wallen's demeanor at that time. How would you describe his demeanor as excited, agitated, angry, any of those words? Do those describe Mr. Wallen's demeanor at that time?
Let's finish that with just this answer, okay?
Yes, sir.
There we go.
I think I sort of irritated Mr. Wallen because I was fussing because I was having to come and didn't know where to go to and didn't know what I was going to do. And I think I just kept saying, I think this is such a shame and that we have to do all this. And I was more irritated than anybody, but I think I did irritate him a little because I'm very verbal and I say whatever I think.
Okay, is that sufficient?
Yes, sir, it is. I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Leake, you have some things to ask this lady?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Leake, if I can, I do have one follow-up question from something that was stated, if that's okay.
Mr. Laws would be one to address that. Normally, I would go.
Yeah, I think we need to let Mr. Leake go next, and then we'll continue this. We want everybody to have an opportunity.
Thanks, Sid. And again, my apologies for having to inconvenience.
Okay, Mr. Leake, you're asking for all of this to be entered at one time?
Not this time.
Okay.
I'm just making it available for all of us to have
Reference?
have something we can look at some.
Okay.
And you're going to be skipping through it, kind of skipping through the tulips to look at various things that, as I get close to this nice lady, to show it to her with some trepidation, afraid she might hit me since I aggravated her. So,
We'll not allow that.
ma'am, I'm going to show you a document that's been marked as Exhibit 4, and I'll ask you if that appears to be the tax return for 2011 for the Ledfords.
Yes, it is.
And it in fact shows the post office box, that big post office box that you
That's right.
referenced. And then I'm going to show you what's marked as Exhibit 5. And I'm going to ask you if that appears to be the 2011 state tax return.
Yes, it is.
And for the Ledfords, it shows the same post office box.
Right.
And these tax returns are made subject to penalty of perjury, are they not?
Yes.
And the state tax return very specifically calls for address, the county address.
Yes, it does. The state in which the address is in. This is Mars Hill, and it came out Madison County. Computer automatically picks it up.
Well, now, you're a computer person. When I'm filling them out with ink, we fill them in by ink, but it says Madison, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And it was signed by them,
Yes.
2011,
Yes.
2012, under penalty of perjury.
Right.
That was the address that's shown on Exhibit in 6 and 7 for the 2012.
Right. Because Mars Hill is considered in Madison County because of that address.
Well, didn't you tell me that Lamona had told you that Madison was the address?
Yes, Madison County.
Now, you are a very forthcoming lady. You told me, amongst other things, that you represented, that you did your Carwood taxes.
Yes, I do.
I have been since told by my client you did taxes for the whole law enforcement community in Western North Carolina.
Just about it.
So if I get in trouble, I'm going to be coming to see you.
Okay.
But I'm a little, I think I understand, when Jerry Wallen, who I gather you've done taxes for a long time?
Yes.
Nothing unusual about him showing up at your office this time of year.
No, I called and told him his taxes were ready.
So you called him, that resulted in him coming to pick up his return.
Right.
And when you made that call to him, did you have any thought of this in mind? Did you know he was on the county board of election?
I had no idea.
When you engaged in this conversation, you began the conversation about John Ledford, right?
I had no idea he was on the election board.
So, and you were irritated, and did he at any point say, I'm on the board of elections?
He told me that he had, I said, I have to be there Monday morning at 9:30. I have no idea where I'm going. And we talked for a minute, and he said, well, Norma, I have to be there at 9:30 too. And I said, did you get subpoenaed? And he said, no, I didn't get subpoenaed. I'm on the election board. And I said, holy cow.
So he was probably saying, holy cow too, wasn't he?
He probably was. Because I was just racing.
There's nobody who was trying to get out the door at that point. Now, I'm a little perplexed at this. I'm hearing all kinds of things that I knew nothing about, and they did. How did they learn about this Lamona Ledford conversation?
Do not ask me.
You've not had any conversation with either one of them?
No, today's the first time I've seen those.
But yet somehow they knew to ask you a question about a conversation that you had with one of your many clients, and you don't know how.
Well, probably Buddy Ledford's wife was at my office. She brought her income tax to be done. Harwood, I'm sorry. And we just had a conversation, and I said, well, I've got to go Monday morning, and I have no idea where I'm going. So it was just a conversation.
So you
That's what it was.
may have shared that.
I may have shared that with her.
Now, help me with time of year of that conversation with Mrs. Levitt. You say it was fall of...
It was probably in the fall of 2013. She came by.
Do you know why she was there at that occasion? Wasn't tax time?
No, I have no idea. Maybe to pick up a copy of something that she didn't have.
Could it have been as early as August?
I can't say. I could go back on my calendars and look, but I cannot say what day it was.
So it could, perhaps.
It could have been anywhere from July on, but I cannot tell you.
Those would be my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
And again, my apologies. And we just wanted to be no questions and those would be changed.
Thank you.
Mr. Leake, the 4 pages you referenced, are you asking for those to be submitted to the record?
Our rules typically say that we do that when we're presenting evidence.
Okay.
So if and when that time comes, it's my time to do that, then I will do it.
Okay. This is my first attempt at this, and I wanted to be good at it.
Doing well.
Thank you.
Consent of Mr. Leake, I would allow all the exhibits that he prepared to be admitted without objection, that he handed out. Just because we had her on the stand and we're taking her out of order, instead of, I'm speaking Mr. Laws now for the record, I don't want there to be some convoluted, he didn't admit it now. There's no great gamesmanship here. In good faith, we've asked Ms. Schuhoff to come from Waynesville. She has a health issue. I'm not going to raise some issue that Mr. Leake didn't do something procedurally the right way.
So let's just say we removed that stipulation to formally admit exhibits 4, 5, 6, and 7.
And the chair will allow that and be duly noted, and you've got a copy. You do not. We will get you a copy. Okay. Redirect of this lady from board members. I think that's the rotation we're using right now.
My question was actually asked by Mr. Leake. That was my question, was the timeline of this conversation last fall. My
Okay.
question was whether or not it was prior or after November.
Mr. Hyde? Okay, thank you. Mr. Wallen?
No, I think she done very well.
I have one question, and we've stayed away from real pointed issues here, and I don't want to be the first one to raise this, but I've got to ask. When you had this conversation with Mr. Wallen in your office, do you think that you were being told what to testify to?
I just think that Mr. Wallen wanted me to know that I didn't have to be real evasive. All I had to say was, say the post office box, Mars Hill, North Carolina.
You almost answered my question.
Okay, I almost did, okay.
I'm assuming that we're here to hear the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and we've all watched TV. We know that's supposed to be said. Was he telling you to be just a little bit evasive?
I think he was just trying to tell me that I didn't have to be,
Truthful?
no. He was just maybe trying to soothe my feathers because I was upset, but he just let me know that all I had to say was it was post office box, and he didn't quote the box. I'm sure he didn't know it. Mars Hill, North Carolina.
Were you being intimidated?
No.
You don't look like you could be intimidated.
I don't think I've ever been intimidated.
Okay. So you don't think Mr. Wallen was advising you as a member of this board? You do realize this is serious business, and
Yes,
you
it
may
is.
get a subpoena from Raleigh.
It is.
We want to get it right this time.
It is serious business, and I think he was just telling me that that's all I had to do. I don't have to worry about a physical address.
That was from his mouth.
He did not tell me I didn't have to worry about a physical address. He just told me. And I think he was trying to make me realize I did not have to worry about a physical address.
Was he giving you advice?
I don't know if you'd call it advice. I think he was just trying to help me feel comfortable with what I had to come over here and say today.
Okay. And you've answered everything, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're through with the attorneys.
I would say Mr. Leake's standard, but
Excuse me, actually I have a question. And ma'am, in context with the conversation about Mr. Wallen, it was really in regards to where to send the gentleman's taxes, that being John Medford, correct?
Excuse me?
On where to mail John Medford's taxes to, was that not the original context of the conversation?
I didn't understand you. I can't hear you over here.
If I heard you correctly, originally the whole context of the conversation was where to mail John Medford's taxes to him, correct?
Was me coming here today.
Mr. W.J. Wickerama, you have anything further? Or Mr. Hyde?
I ask that she be dismissed at this time.
And the chair agrees, and we wish you well back to Haywood County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
ma'am.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll see you next year.
Okay.
Anything further, Mr. W.J. Wickerama, or Mr. Hyde, in regards to Mr. Wallen's ability to hear this case?
That concludes my questioning of the issues regarding Mr. Wallen.
Okay. Mr. Leake, do you have anything to add to this conversation?
At this time, sir, I would like to make a motion that, based on the testimony presented, that Mr. Jerry Wong recused himself from hearing this, as I believe the testimony has indicated that he has violated rules and so forth by law regarding the impartiality of a Board of Elections member.
Okay. Members of the board, Mr. W.J. Wickerama has recommended that, and
I think at this point, this is just a
Procedure.
motion directed
To-
the chair
sure.
directly.
I understand.
Let's have charity.
yeah, okay. Well, I think first we need to see if there is a member of the board that would like to follow up with that recommendation.
I think what we've been doing is actually, when we went to Mr. Gibson, we asked Mr. Gibson if...
Okay, then we'll start there?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I will not step down.
Okay.
Your Honor, at this time, based on Mr. Wallen's response, I would now make a second motion to the board that the board make a motion to have Mr. Wallen removed for the purposes of the hearing in this matter regarding John Ledford's candidacy for presidency and Dunn's officership.
We have heard the counsel for these three plaintiffs who are citizens of Madison County. Is there a motion from a member of the board that we recuse Mr. Wallen from serving in this matter? Sufficient time has been allowed by the chair, and we will move on with our proceedings then. Understanding, Mr. W.J. Wickrama, that this will go further than this courthouse here in Madison County, and but we have, I trust, done our due diligence. At this point in time, I will turn the chairmanship of this board back over to Mr. Andy Gibson, the duly elected chair.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Folks, if we can at this time, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It appears to me with my poor eyesight to be about 11:15. Let's reconvene about 11:25.
Okay.